and connecting that with sensors to detect when birds fly past the windows and turning them opaque.
Oh, neat.
The electrochromic film uses a technology similar to an LCD display, which uses liquid crystals under precise electronic control. This changes how much light can get through the glass. When the current is switched on, the crystals line up like opening blinds, allowing light to stream through until switched off. The crystals then orient themselves randomly, scattering any light passing through, appearing opaque. Next slide. Coupling this film with active ultrasonic sensor technology, the sensor emits ultrasonic sound waves that reflect off objects and bounce back to the original emission point. Next slide. When a moving bird disrupts the waves, the sensor triggers the film to turn matte and opaque so the bird can recognize it as an obstacle and avoid it. To install bird film, all you need to do is roll the film over your window, similarly to a privacy decal. Next, attach the motion sensor to the top of the window, facing outside the building, then connect the motion sensor to the film. Finally, plug the power cord into an outlet and you're all set to save the birds. The frosted window look is stylish in any office, increased privacy when the film is opaque. The reduced light can penetrate the window, dimming and cooling the room. The device is easy to use. It will automatically detect birds and can be turned on and off for personal use by the press of a button or the flick of a switch.
So in our budget, to start, we need a patent, which can range from $250 to $1,500, as well as a patent attorney in order to protect rights and work with the product. We've also reserved money for working with product designers and engineers to help with technological boundaries that some of us may have. The goal is to reach prototype testing and then further manufacturing our first wave of product. So we have reserved $30,000 for manufacturing, $10,000 for product.
Large window that is a problem window, or just you could cover a problem window with it pretty easily. I think that would be really interesting and a real cool way to showcase. You know, there are a lot of different you know, takes on how to solve this problem, from stickers to UV lights in it, but I'd never seen this one before, so I think it's pretty cool.
Laura, did you have any questions for that team before they move on to the next one?
No, not right now. Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.
That's a really clever idea, especially on upper floors. I could see that being really welcomed.
Nick, did you share the Kate Orff study with everyone? I can throw that in the, it's just a fun resource.
Maybe early on.
It's the New York City Audubon guidelines. I don't know if that was shared with any of you. Some are nodding, so I'm assuming that it was.
About 25 of us have made it into the new link. So we're just waiting for a couple more folks to join. I think Bob will have the complete list. I'm really glad I was here to help with that. I hope this
Thank you.
makes it a little seamless.
Junkos, I'm interested to hear more about what the MIT guy said. He just thought that there would be take a while, or
Where's, oh, Dylan, do you want to talk more about that? You were the one that was.
Yeah, he sent just a quick email. He said he was going to think about it more and give us a better response, but his only suggestion was it was going to be expensive and take some time to figure it out.
What does he know?
Yeah, right? He's just an MIT professor.
Oh, okay.
And now you'll see who puts in the patent for it, the MIT.
Right, I was going to say.
Yeah, right.
Watch where that materializes.
Right, move fast, guys.
He's gonna think about it. Yeah. Think
All
about
right,
it.
I
to
think
the
I'm
base.
actually surprised that they're not doing anything in their materials about that. I'm kind of shocked.
I think everybody's back on, so why is my picture muted?
Patty, I wonder that the University of Maine Composite Labs that's doing all the offshore wind stuff. I wonder if they ever thought about this stuff.
Yeah, the UMA, University of Maine in Augusta, their School for Architecture is just starting to look at it, but it's the engineering teams that really
Right.
have the power to build the materials. So yeah, I would be curious. There's only one campus in the state of Maine that has bird-safe glass, and it's the University of New England on their campus. Again, I don't know if I'm repeating anything, so forgive me. But their center for, I guess it's their campus center right on a wetland, has a massive auditorium that is in all bird-safe glass.
Well, thank you, Junko Jeans, and thanks all for feedback and sharing some extra stuff. That's great. So the next team up is the Puffins, and you are on.
Hi, everyone. I hope everyone's doing well. Let's see, I will be sharing my screen. All right. And can everyone see it?
Yep.
Oops. All right, so first I just wanted to start by thanking everyone for being here and for Nick from the Maine Audubon for helping us with our research. And I think Anderson's gonna start us off on our presentation.
Yeah, hello. Today we're gonna be talking about this project that we created with the focus of spreading awareness on the birds crashing into windows. It's gonna be a little bit repetitive, it's already been said a lot today. But yeah, the main focus here is just putting a lot of faith in humanity and, just spreading the information so everybody knows and is aware of what's happening. You can go to the next slide. There's many reasons for birds dying a year, but we found that the most reasons have been cats with a whopping 600 million, which is a lot farther than it's crashing into windows. But we figured that maybe if we focused on windows first, it'd be the easiest and most efficient way to lower the number as much as we could. But yeah, there's many reasons for why birds crash into windows, but most of it has to do with their vision and their understanding of glass itself. It's a human-made construct, so they're not gonna really process what it is. They don't understand the reflection. So when they see what's in front of them, they see it as more path or more sky. Yeah, continuing on that topic, it's really easy for the birds to get confused with windows. Only like humans really understand what that is. So we figured our solution to that may be just sticking decals everywhere on the lower floors of buildings, maybe around Maine, decals and posters with the idea of providing a link to a website that could give more information out on why they're doing that and maybe solutions as well, such as like one-way transparent film or more decals like on the higher floors. But
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So I think our main focus is awareness, and with the decals, they would be mass produced. So I know everyone likes to put stickers on laptops and notebooks and cars. So we just thought this would be a quick and effective way of getting the awareness and the word across. And this is just a simple design that we came up with. And I think it would be interesting in the future to look into working with local artists too in designing more logos that would work well with what we're trying to get across. And Sophie, did you want to talk about this poster?
Your microphone may be muted.
Yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. So this is just an example of like one poster that I made. Kind of using like shock value and like edginess, you know, it'll like catch people's attention. And then like having like the website link on the decal. We can like a QR code can also be made, so you can just simply scan it on your phone. And then it'll just bring you right to the website, which so you can learn more about it. And so yeah, we could like we could just like hang these posters up like around Portland. So yeah, that's the poster.
So in connection with the website would be in support of the Audubon Maine website. So kind of redirecting the audience to do further investigation of it. So this is our costs we're asking for. Of course, we would have to pay the wonderful people that would be helping us make more designs for the stickers and posters. So in the grand total, to mass produce prints and stickers, we would be asking for a total of $4,797. And yeah.
Thank you very much. That was great. I love the graphics. I love the budget. As a person giving you money, it's nice to see how you're going to spend it. What's your timeline for getting this up and going?
I think, this is fairly quick process. So I think within less than a year, I think this would be able to happen. And of course, there would always be adjustments throughout the process of putting posters up and location too.
I love the designs of the posters and the decals as well. How would you plan to measure the impact that's a bad choice of words. How would you plan to measure the result of these decals and posters and how it might correlate with fewer birds hitting windows?
I think that with tracking how much people are on the site, looking at the site, maybe the effectiveness of people, like the buildings around here, having the materials that could, prevent these bird crashes would really help. Taking note of that, and with success here in Maine, the hope is to be able to branch out to other cities.
That's great. The web analytics, that's a really great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I think the designs look wonderful. This is kind of a retail approach to the problem, and I'm wondering if you might want to think about a wholesale approach, maybe going to architectural firms or big industrial buildings and presenting so that more could be you could have a bigger impact for your work if every or even going to city councils and asking every building permit to consider what to do about the birds and having this distribution be part of any building permit process. Just some ideas to increase the impact of the idea, which I think is great. At Porches, we actually experienced birds hitting our windows. So anyone who has a building, anyone who's in facilities, anyone who's applying for a permit, just in Portland, we see the number of buildings coming up. You could really quadruple your efforts by going to some of the, just making a list of all those kinds of organizations and making presentations, including architectural conventions, et cetera.
And I just want to say from my perspective, how great decals or posters like this would be. You know, a big problem for us is that this is largely an invisible problem. You know, birds hit windows sometimes when people aren't there. You'd be surprised how quickly gulls or other predators come and collect the carcasses. And so this is very easy. I mean, it's part of the awareness issue that we deal with all the time, is that it's just not front and center, even though it's killing millions of birds in the city of Portland. And so some sort of lasting content, lasting awareness would really help trigger in people's minds that this is a real issue that's happening. I would advise maybe on the decals to make the message, I know this is just a template, a message a little more forthright instead of just save the birds. You know, something more direct in terms of, you know, birds hit this window, or I know that's just a sample design, but something that really sort of lets the user know that what the problem is. Same with the poster, I think, as well, just to be frank with that. And so, but I think, you know, once you get some other designs in, I will say too, on the budget, you know, I think the costs for designers are a little low, you know, $45 for a design. You know, as artists who are about to head into the world, I think you should command more than that. I know that you know, it does cost more than that. So I would bump that up to a living wage somehow. But you know, the you know, the framework is correct and is there.
You both, Laura and Nick, raised really good points, and I just had another thought. If these birds are flying into windows, it's causing maintenance issues, right? And so then there are facilities staff, and there are budgets for repairing windows that are broken, and also apparently cleaning up the mess that is left behind when this happens. And so there's cost associated with that for everybody who owns a building or leases a building in Portland. And that's another way for you to generate interest in your decals and also fund them, is to map out or research what is the cost to facilities to clean up after these issues. Build that into your sales pitch or your messaging, so that people who own buildings are like, oh, this is actually also going to save me money and the birds. There's a win-win there.
Thank you, guys.
You're on mute if you're.
I know, I'm sorry. I think the idea of approaching city council is really brilliant. And you could actually think of the decals as a badge, you know, sort of your grading system of how proactive you've been with your building. So each decal is then earned, because then having that policy poster, if you will, that gets pinned up. And then someone looks for, you know, carrying that. So yeah, you become a part of a community of bird safe thinkers.
On that same point, a lot of architects are very proud of their green approach. And you could have this be part of, no building gets that certification without looking at the environmental impact of the birds. And so it's incorporated into the requirements to have that designation. But I want to also say the posters look really good. I like the type. My rule of thumb on budgeting is double it. There are so many unknowns. You really have a very stripped down cost. And if you think about the extra time it's going to take to correct the typo, the extra time it's going to take to change the colors, someone's going to want something bigger or smaller. So put in a contingency, if not so bold as to double it, of 50% for things like that, because it's a very bare bones budget. And if you needed to communicate with each other and you weren't in school anymore, if you needed office supplies, things like that.
One of Nick's colleagues, actually, Eric Topper at Maine Audubon, starts out all of his lectures with "buildings shouldn't kill birds." It's pretty bold. And when you get a room filled with architects, particularly those that are interested in the green building, Passive House is all about windows and capturing as much sun and heat as possible. It's jarring. So the more jarring and bold your visuals are, the better your messaging is. So kudos.
Thank you very much. That was very well done and very well fit. The feedback was incredible. So that's good. Thank you, everyone. Any other questions before we move on? Okie doke. So let's go and let's hear from the paint pants.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen for this presentation. If you can all just let me know if you are in fact seeing that on your screen.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
All right, so we came up with the bird helmet campaign for this issue. And before we go into what we're doing as a campaign, let's talk about why birds need helmets in the first place. So the main reasons that birds need helmets is because according to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, there's anywhere from around an average of 1 million a day to 3 million birds that die a day from collisions with buildings in the United States alone. And so there's two primary reasons that this is occurring. The first of which is that glass reflects. So if you have a glass building that has trees or clouds around it, that building is going to look like a continuation of that environment, and birds are not going to be able to differentiate that from the air around the building. The second reason being that glass is transparent, leaving birds completely unaware that there's something obstructing where they want to travel. And in some cases, what is on the inside of the building can actually entice birds to fly into those windows if there's well-lit trees, or you can see through both sides of the building to landscape on the other side. And then additionally, birds involved in these collisions are smaller birds, which have their eyes closer to the sides of their head so that they can see predators very well, but that does not allow them to have great forward vision, which makes the difficulties these birds have seeing glass even more difficult. So here are just some examples to make this more clear. This building here is reflecting the surrounding environment very clearly. If you were a bird without very good frontal vision, you can understand how that would be confusing trying to fly around that area. And here's an example of glass that's transparent. It's really hard to differentiate if you are a bird where that tree starts and ends, and if there's anything actually in between you and that tree. So that's sort of the problem, and that's what we're trying to approach. So at Bird Helmet, we are educators first. Our mission is raising awareness for this widely unknown problem through making these following points publicly known, and ultimately we are just trying to be an engine for change. So what we want to let the world know is the numbers surrounding this problem, because I personally did not know them before Nick came and talked to our class. I don't think a lot of the students here did. My brother's an architect. I reached out to him. He didn't know a lot about this. So we just want to raise awareness for what is going on here. We also want to let people know that this is not just about cities. Most of these strikes are occurring in the first 3 stories of buildings. So this is a problem for homes, apartments, schools, any structure, as long as it has glass on it. So you can take action in your personal life. And then it seems that there's this misunderstanding that you can just put a single decal on a window and it will act as a deterrent. We want people to really know that these birds are comfortable flying in spaces as small as 4 by 2 inches. So if you're going to protect your windows from bird collisions, you really need to make sure that it is covered more tightly than that spacing. And lastly, we want to show the solutions that exist. We initially approached this problem with what can we come up with, and a lot of the things that we came up with after researching them, they're out there. So there's no lacking in that department. It's just people's unawareness. So we want to show the solutions other ways to help, and allow people to take action. If Aminato or Sydney, if you want to cut me off at any point, feel free to jump in. I can keep rolling for now, though.
You're doing great.
So how we plan to engage with the public. So we want to use this motif of birds wearing helmets, partially because it's hilarious, it's catchy, it's kind of the most absurd solution you could think of. And in a simple image, it gives you the idea of what we're talking about. You don't necessarily know that it's about windows, but you understand that you are trying to protect the birds from something. And then we're taking that to direct people to where more information is. So anytime that we're showing these motifs, we want to also list our website, our social media, so we can direct people towards more information. So here's just an example of, t-shirts that our campaign would circulate to catch attention and also direct towards taking action. And then one of our biggest targets is we want to include murals. So this campaign is intended to run for 6 months, at least to start, from May to October, which is the primary migratory season for when these birds are moving. And so every first Friday of those 6 months, we would have a new mural put up in Portland somewhere that has, unique artists each time of different birds wearing different helmets. And then underneath the mural, we would have our social, like our Instagram account, whatever social media we want to run, websites. So you're not used to seeing a bird with a helmet, it catches your attention, and then it leads you to our site. And these are just some beautiful examples made by Aminata of, bird helmet murals. So yeah, of course, we can engage people, but how are we going to take action after we have engaged them? So as I was saying, all of these different public displays will have links to our website and social media. And the first thing you will see when you access those is clear, informative text on the problem. We know people have busy lives. We need to catch their attention quickly. So we will just list some straight numbers and let people understand the severity of the problem. We also want to take advantage of what is already out there. So we're gonna link petitions regarding legislation that we can get people to sign. I mean, it does not take anything to sign a petition, and once you understand the problem, there's almost no reason not to. In addition to the petitions, we want to have merchandise, which not only helps raise awareness, but it also could bring some money back to pay for further advertising and marketing. And products are out there that already exist to make your windows safe. So we want to make those accessible and allow people to access them from our site. And then the last thing that this sort of campaign would have is a pledge that businesses can take to make their buildings, windows, bird safe. And we could offer them, some vinyl that goes in the windows that says like bird helmet compliant or whatever, so that when a business is taking action to protect the birds in your area. So what are we asking from you guys? How can you help us achieve this dream that we want? So we need assistance and funding for these following things. Social media marketing. That is the primary foundation, regardless of how we're getting people's attention. That is where we're going to be showcasing our information as well as our website. So those two, designing and running those platforms, are going to be our primary funding. On top of that, murals get expensive. There's a lot of materials that go into them. You have to pay the artist time, and you have to find buildings that people can access. So funding for murals is important. And then if we're going to be selling merchandise, that has to get produced somewhere, which we've reached out to different local sources so that all that'll be done in our community. In addition to just simply stickers that we can get the publicity out there, and the decals for the businesses. So how that breaks down into expenses, we would use VIA agency for most of the design. So graphic design, website, email, social media, all of that would be run through VIA here in Portland. And following that, little chair printing, which I'm sure if you guys have been around MECA, you've seen at one point or another. It's run by a great lady who has this little bicycle with screen printing shop kind of on the back of it. And they come through and print different shirts so we can keep that money right within the Portland art community. And then for certain things like window decals and stickers, it's logical to just go with a larger brand such as Vistaprint, where we can get these large amounts of stickers produced. And then for the murals, Better Letter hand painted signs based out of Portland as well. Was the most accessible company to run these murals through. So that would just take $2,000 approximately each time. And if we were doing that once per month for 6 months, that's going to add up to around $12,000. So for VIA, we have 5,900. For the t-shirts from Little Chair Printing, it's around 2,500. Vistaprint's around 630. Better Letters to 12,000. So our total expenses would be somewhere right over $21,000. And we hope that you invest in the safety of our birds and that you support the bird helmet campaign and that we can get this thing off the ground. So thank you guys.
Those are really great graphics. And Little Chair Printing is an alumni of Maine College of Art, Hope Revelto.
Yes.
So good to support her. And yeah, I liked how it kind of ties, each team is starting to tie together, make a great big company.
I love the design. I love how you flipped the concept, which is at the heart of creativity, right? Rather than fix the building, you fix the birds. But that's really just about messaging, right? So putting a helmet on a bird, great idea. So one thought that I have is one of the aspects of your budget is to hire a business to do the murals. And I wondered if you'd considered hiring or working with like colleges, like an art college, to get maybe MFA students or BFA students to actually do those installations and have it be part of an educational program for them as well. Did you look at that?
We had not considered that, but the reason that we wanted to go with better hand letters because Ryan Adams is, I think, either co-founder or co something. He works with them very closely, and his wife Rachel is an alumni of MECA, and a lot of the times when he's been working on murals within the community, it's always like he may be overseeing the design or doing something else, but it's very much a very good opportunity for community engagement. People can always come and help out. And so I think that the way we were thinking about it is that we would work with them. Maybe Ryan would sort of jump off one of the murals, and then we would be working with different artists in Portland. There's so many amazing people here who are like amazing artists and painters. I mean, we have Sydney on our team who did a mural with Candace last summer. So I think that that sort of reaching out to students was something that we would totally be open to, just sort of keeping it under a company that this is what they do, and then sort of branching out from that.
Thanks. I really appreciate also that your focus is keeping it local. That's really
absolutely. I mean, and that's sort of the idea of why we were thinking about having the bird helmet sort of seal of approval in your business, because, they're again realizing that a lot of these impacts are happening on 6-story or less like high buildings. We have a lot of those in town, and the Portland community is so engaged and interconnected that I feel like it'd be very easy to convince people to do this, and especially considering global warming and how birds are so essential to our environment. This is definitely the time, and it's murals, it's art, it's engagement. Like, this is all that Portland is about, and so I think it'd be super easy to do that.
I love this project. I like starting with humor. I think people are tired and have compassion fatigue. Mm-hmm. So getting their attention with something that's counterintuitive, why is this bird wearing the helmet, puts you in a good mood. So I think great job with that approach. Again, I think you could combine almost all of these different projects for a big nonprofit that would work together. What I feel like I'm missing is the importance of birds beyond, we don't want to kill our natural life, but there's also things that Aminata, you just started talking about, they have a key role in our ecology, and they're critical to our gardens and our ability to eat and have a healthy environment. So I think that some research on why this is all important will be important for all of your projects. I think you're all coming to it with an assumption that everyone is where you are. And there's no discussion, but there's always another group who will argue that there's something, their cause is much more important. So I think a lot of work has to be, if you save the birds, you also are feeding children. You also are caring about your humanity. So, but I can see taking the humorous approach, getting people's attention, and then using all of these different techniques that each group brought to the table as something that could be combined. So good work. I'm impressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because we mentioned in our presentation that we're talking about a social media marketing campaign and thinking about it running from May to October, these primary migration seasons. You know, that is something that could totally be incorporated into this idea and this process about, like, so sustaining that, and how outside of just, you know, premiering each mural and doing sort of behind the scenes on what that's like, but also maybe we're spotting the birds that are coming in, you know, that are native but are also migrating into Portland during these times, and thinking about awareness and graphics and sort of making that all flow in a cohesive way throughout the 6 months. So I thank you so much for suggesting that, because I think it's a really good idea, and it could totally be applicable to what we're doing.
Thank you. I'm going to have to leave. I think this is great. I'll watch the rest of the recording. And thanks for inviting me.
Thanks for being here.
I just want to say I love this so hard. You know, nobody in the history of this issue has looked at this and said, that's funny. I can think of a funny thing there. And just like Laura said, you sort of, there's a consistency to the messaging because it's a sad issue and a dire issue that sort of gets monotonous perhaps. And so breaking through that with some humor is a really novel approach. And I love it. I do want to film the PSA that we had talked about in one of our earlier things where we're chasing around seagulls with football helmets or something. So I think there's a lot here, and it is a way to, you know, because you don't want to. I mean, it's a great compliment, I think, to the previous group as well, because that messaging is also very important and affects people in a different way. So it's sort of to cover our bases and come at that issue from different angles. It's just a great way to do it, and I think there's a lot here that I want to wear that shirt right now.
Well, I have to give credit where it's due, and Sydney was the one who came up with the idea, because we were in class and, you know, talking about this issue, and she was like, bird helmets. We should just get all the birds little helmets that they should wear. And it was funny, but it's like also, you know, as you said, it is we're in a panoramic, we're in a Panic at the Disco. It is a very sad time. And, exactly. You know, being able to sort of let people engage with these things with a little bit of humor and a little bit of levity and vibrancy is really, you know, all that we can hope to do.
I totally agree. I mean, the environmental community in general is not particularly adept at humor, and so it, you know, it takes creative people like you all to help us with that. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. That was great. That was fantastic. Any other questions? All righty. Let's hear from the Night Owls.
Hi, everyone. I'm going to share the presentation real quick, so give me 1 moment. I also just wanted to say thank you guys for taking the time to listen to our presentation. Okay, so I'm going to be starting our presentation. So today, our group will be proposing a possible solution to the current bird strike crisis, focusing specifically on Portland, Maine. So what is the issue? Currently, a large threat to birds and the #1 killer of birds is glass. Within a year, glass can be the cause of death to up to 1 billion birds, posing a huge danger to the bird population, especially to those who might be endangered. This problem reaches its peak during migration season in the spring and fall. During migration, birds cover long distances at night using the stars for navigation. If they happen to fly through a city, they may fly straight into glass because it is transparent and they don't see something that is right in their way. Or they may fly into glass because it reflects the environment and looks as if it is a group of trees. Sadly, when birds do fly into glass, there is a high mortality rate. Even for those who survive the initial impact, this can make cities especially deadly due to the large amount of glass windows. And some buildings having entirely glass interior. One of the biggest issues, however, is the fact that not many people know how big of a problem this is. Because of this, we will be focusing specifically in Portland in this area. There are so many buildings with large areas of glass, and that is dangerous to birds, such as the Portland Public Library, the High Place, even our own MECA building. Some of the other locations in Portland include the Casco Bay Ferry Terminal and the 24-hour gym on Congress Street, which is right across from MECA. And along with that is the newly built WEX building, and all of these buildings pose a large danger to birds, and yet none of them have employed any solution.
So our goal with this is to educate the people of Portland on this issue and to get them talking about it. Education is the first step towards employing bird-safe solutions for glass on both current buildings and for future ones. We plan to do this through a poster-driven awareness campaign. This campaign will run through spring migration season of next year from April to June, where the issue is at its peak. The campaigns and posters would teach people about the issues and also give them resources to learn more about it and how they can help. Utilizing local talent, we would hire a student or alumni from the graphic design department at MECA to design a set of 2 posters to hang in key areas around Portland, especially the problematic buildings. And here you can see a quick mock-up we've made on the right of what the posters could look like. We will also work with the designer to design a set of flyers and social media advertisement. And some of the buildings, specifically MECA, may even work with us in order to help showcase posters in or around the buildings themselves. Posters and flyers would point towards resources for more information and possible solutions, such as window stickers that people could employ in their own homes to let them know what they can do to help.
So our timeline, like Joe mentioned before, our campaign will run during migration season, starting in April of next year. Design will kick off February 1st, giving the designer until March 5th to design all poster and flyer assets. From March 8th to the 19th, the designer will create a social media ad campaign. And then starting on the 22nd, the campaign will go into production and will launch April 1st. So the budget design part of it, the designer will work on the campaign for 20 hours a week for 7 weeks total and will be paid $32 an hour, which will cost $4,480. And then production, we are going to use FedEx in Portland for 12 posters. And then we're also going to get 200 flyers for around Portland, which will cost $660. And then with the cost to run our social media ad campaign on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, we'll need $5,980 total. And then to track the success of our campaign, we're going to watch social media engagement, track website traffic, keep a count of bird walk participants, and also track how many people will join the newsletter. And yeah, that's it.
Let's open it for questions.
I really like the graphics, and that it was a nice, clean, clear presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, I feel like those graphics in the PowerPoint are a great sort of branding beginning already right there. So kudos to that. I mean, I love this idea. I will, as we said, raising awareness is a huge part of the problem, and getting some folks to be creative with their designs on a poster and have them around gets to that problem. And like we've shown from all the work you guys have done already, when you get creative people involved, you come up with sort of innovative ways to make the idea stick. It's not just me doing my same old environmental sob story stuff, but there are different solutions and ways to get at it. So I think it's great. And I did want to mention too, I appreciate the tracking piece at the end. That type of, in all kinds of grants, having a report or how did we do, or being able to track your progress is really important. So I appreciate you thinking of that and putting it in there.
I also really appreciated your timeline. It was the most specific, and that allows me to see like very clearly what your benchmarks are, what your goals are, and then to know if we fund you, whether or not you meet those goals. So your timeline was excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
All righty. Nice job, folks. Nice job. Our last team has the most intriguing name. I gotta see if I can find it now. I've got a lost it here from the Bird Death Prevention Intervention Project. All right, you're on.
So I'm gonna be sharing my screen for us. I am not great at Zoom, so I apologize. I also do want to let people know that I'm presenting from work, so my internet might be just like a tiny bit spotty. So if I do kind of cut out, you can just interrupt me. I'll go back if you need to. So this is us. We're kind of looking at it at this project as we're going to be living in this big city. So we kind of had the idea that we're
Oh no, it is spotty. Frozen.
Is there anyone else in the group who can jump in?
Oh, tell you, Beck.
I'm going to try to join from my iPad.
Any guesses on what kind of bird this is while we wait?
Baby ostrich.
That's a good guess. I think it's a baby sandpiper or a baby plover. Good job, whoever said that.
This, the beak gives it away.
For me, it was the legs.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, but you need to mute your other machine because I think it's still picking up your mic and creating an echo.
Oh my God, I'm so sorry. That was really bad. Okay.
No problem. These things happen.
Okay, so can you hear me? Can you see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Woo, great. Okay, let me just start over. So we are kind of looking at this as like we're coming in from an outside town, so like New York, and we're coming to Portland to educate high schoolers because we feel that, you know, focusing on a younger generation is really where we should start rather than current generations, which aren't doing, you know, too great of a job. So overall, our goal, like I just said, we're going to try to visit high schools in the area. As a broader thing, we're going to try and, you know, go like around the US, but to start, we'd like to focus in Portland and around Portland, so Portland High School. We're going to try to provide some prevention methods for them. So like little stickers on windows, on different projects that they can work on. And then overall, we kind of just want to like focus on the harmful side of things. So that's doing too great. So without Corona, aside, because we obviously have to, you know, think of that. But in a life without Corona, typically how things would look is we would go into each school and kind of like introduce the problem, why it's happening, and kind of leave time for like a short little discussion afterwards. And then individually as a group, so 3 of us, we'd kind of like visit classrooms and kind of just give them knowledge on what they can do from home. So different little projects and stuff. And then finally, kind of as like we're leaving, here's your project. We're going to leave them with a project to do similar to what we're doing right now. So like a paper or a presentation, or even like fixing something at their school. So like Chloe went to a high school, and her cafeteria had really huge glasses in their cafeteria. So we were going to try to, you know, have the different schools fix that. So here's kind of a preview of what a presentation that we would do in the schools would look like. So we're kind of going to just start by talking about the problem, which you've heard 5 other presentations now, so apologies, but as you know, one of the biggest problems regarding bird death is glass. So it's obviously highly reflective, like this building here, which is the Wex building, when it was being built. So clearly that's something that like birds could fly right through, or think that, you know, it's land on another side of a building that they could fly through. So that's something that we kind of wanted to educate high schoolers on and deter them from doing that in their futures and high schools. One thing I did find pretty important that we should note is that at this building alone, over the last 4 months, 19 birds were found here. Whether they were all dead is up for debate, but 19 birds were found at this building, either dead or stunned. And then this is another pretty good example. This is the One City Center building, which is right down the road from MECA. It's in Monument Square. This image on the right is at sunset. So you can see that the sunset is reflecting, you know, pretty hard off of the building, where a bird could probably just, you know, fly right into it and assume that, you know, it has clear airspace when really it doesn't. So at this building, only 5 birds were found in the last 4 months, but that's still, you know, that's still a lot. And then this is the last building that I kind of wanted to talk about. This is Seaport Credit Union. It's in the Old Port in Portland, so right on the water, actually. This building has, it's mostly a bank, but it has 4 condos on top of it. So the windows there are like 8 feet tall. So that's a lot of space for a bird, you know, flying into land to really like crash into. So that's something that I wanted to point out as well. So a short problem that we wanted to touch on with high schoolers, just younger people in general, is light, because birds do migrate, obviously, and they get distracted by light. So this is New York City at night. I mean, flying over it is pretty cool for us, but flying over it as birds is super distracting. I mean, they probably would fly either the wrong way or just get distracted and totally off course. So that's another problem that we would like to touch on, but obviously not as big as flying into glass. So there's different projects like, I think it's called Lights Out Chicago, where at night all of their lights are shut off. So it's, you know, easier for birds to really migrate the way that they should. So we were going to try to instill something like that at schools, because like most businesses in Portland, their lights stay on at night, and that really deters birds during, you know, migration periods. So what can you do from home? What can high schoolers do from home? Obviously, you could try to use as little glass as possible. it's not really, the way that we would like to go, because we do enjoy seeing, the outside world and letting, natural light in. But maybe ceiling to floor glass is not really, the way to go in most cases. And then obviously, like a couple other the groups have talked about, you could place stickers on your window to make it, that look less like a window. And there's obviously a lot of other like ideas that you could do. But those were just a few that we wanted to touch on. So when we go to schools, we came up with the idea to print out like a little worksheet that we could give to them. So this is an example of one of them that we were going to give to students to take home in case you do find a victim of this problem that is still alive. So what can you do if they're still alive? So these are just a few of the ways you could help if you find something that's still alive. And then without going into super detail, because we are running low, this is another example of a worksheet that we were going to give out. So these are different ways that you could, fix your windows at home or in school. I know not all schools have floor to ceiling glass with normal windows, but you could, paint little patterns on a window and do other little things. So we were going to print out those two and then kind of just leave them for schools. So that's kind of where we would end our presentation to the schools. We would then open up the floor to discussion and then go into different classrooms and meet with students. So obviously we'll need a budget for this. We are going to be, flying to these places and, educating these students. So we came up with a rough little budget of, the hotel stay, an Uber ride from the hotel, your initial flight to get here, and then, food and, fun, as people call it. So overall, it would be about $2,000 to do what we want to do. I say 2 nights as though you're going to fly in, you're going to do a presentation, and then you're going to fly home the next day. But maybe, we would end up doubling this if it became something that was super, popular in the area. So that's our project. I'm going to turn over to Chloe now, who's going to talk about just a couple other things.
Yeah, so basically our overall hope is that by going to high schools in the area such as Portland High School, Deering Oaks, and South Portland High School, that we will be able to educate and open younger minds to more problem-solving ideas surrounding endangered birds to help shape our world and have a better environmental future. I think that's a really big, crucial thing, and I think that would help a lot of our future generations to see clearly about what matters, like the important matters that we need to start taking into consideration and paying attention to. And I think a lot of past generations didn't quite have the opportunity to hear this knowledge out. I think it's important to spread the knowledge, and yeah. So I'm gonna pass it over to Eamon, and he's gonna talk and take questions.
Yeah, if anyone have a question, I'll be happy to answer.
I thought this was a really good project. I liked the high school and the educational approach kind of thing. The looking at light pollution and all the things you bring up. Each generation brings up something that the last generation didn't take care of. When I grew up, it was lead paint on the windowsills. Who knew that people painted their windowsills with lead paint? That was kind of stupid. But so, yeah, this was pretty good. And welcome back to school, Della. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed this presentation too. As an educator for my career, I value education and the fact that you're going straight after education and programming for youth, I think is really smart because you're going to hopefully get a larger swath of people, as Anne pointed out. the generation takes care of what the generation before them didn't do. So we're hoping that this generation comes forward and saves all the birds, right? So that's a really wise idea. One thing that we do in education is assess the value of our instruction, right? We assess whether or not somebody actually learned something from what we taught them. So how do you plan to assess these youth, the high school students, after you've done this programming? How will you know that they learned from this? What will you be looking for?
Well, for example, like us right now in this class, we had no idea what was happening. So when Nick came and gave the presentation, now it's always going to stay in me. So we were kind of doing the same thing to high schoolers. And once we educate them on birds, and we also give them project to do, so they're like, they have more work like to do on it. So it will never leave them. They might not do anything, but it's good that they're aware of it, and they might do something. So just like spreading the awareness of birds' death, I think will help a lot, because a lot of people don't know. I bet like maybe one of the people in the class knew about it, but all of us didn't know. But now I'm gonna know forever, basically.
That's really great.
Yeah, and especially doing this, like having a project about it, also like doing research, well, you know, it will make it so I will never forget.
Yeah, to go off of what
I'm going to tell my bosses that, just so you know, Eamon, that this work is getting through too. That's how that works. Thank you.
Go off with what Eamon's saying. Also, to like for follow-ups, I feel like if we did this type of educational intervention thing, that it would probably be like a yearly thing, or maybe a every 2-year thing, so that every time we have like there's new students coming into the high schools, like they would also have an opportunity to hear it. And well, we are also thinking about the time frame that we would be doing the presentation, like maybe before the months of April and May, when like the bird migration is strongest, so like we can prepare people for thinking about that in the months to come. And it would also like continue their thought, like as the months go on, like long after we visited, oh, like the birds are flying in the sky tonight, and they would still be thinking about it. So I don't know, I think that would be another way.
Smart. Thank you. And one other thing that I would suggest you build into that model is a survey after the fact, right? So you've got these students in April and they do this project, and you want to make sure that it actually sticks with them. If you actually survey them in October and ask them, what do you still remember from that lesson? That'll also tell you what the impact was that you had. And this idea that you'd repeat it every year is also excellent, because then people will come to expect it, much the way this class expects to do this project every year, which is ongoing and lasting. But I really like this idea.
Absolutely. Additional as well, like the school will be aware of it. So they might add it to a science class. So it would be a part of an every year a project that the students has to do in science class. And since science is, you have to take science, so everybody will have to go through it. So maybe like we would continue doing it for a couple of years, and the school will kind of take over.
So we actually run a curriculum with 9th graders on urban design, and we do it specifically at that age group so that we can build in multi-generational programming and curriculum. So it starts in 9th grade, but then there's a follow-up in 10th, 11th, and 12th. So by the time they graduate, they've actually gone through a series where it gets embedded into their curriculum, either through math, literature, or history. So each year there's a thread with this theme that goes through it. So you can actually think about it from a science perspective, or like this class right now, which is mathematical. What is the title again? It's like entrepreneur. There you go. So technically this is a math class, or well, in its own way. But you can design and develop the curriculum to, again, literally plant the seed of how this will grow over the 4 years. And it's interesting too, because 3rd grade curriculum is really, everybody loves 3rd grade curriculum because 3rd graders are so easy. They haven't developed their insecurities yet. But it's actually fresh, the first year students in high school to juniors in high school, that the most long-lasting impression with these sort of peripheral studies really makes such an impact. So yeah, it's really brilliant.
Yeah, I just want to say, can I jump in for a few minutes, Bob? Yeah, I mean, I love this idea. There are not a lot of issues, environmental issues, that are sort of tactile and relevant to students in the city of Portland, or cities anywhere. You know, when you talk about the rainforest, you talk about polar bears. I mean, it's sort of an abstract, but this is an issue that, you know, birds hit windows at schools. I live right down the street from Greeley, and their Performing Arts Center has a giant glass reflective wall that I'm sure kills birds. And so to arm students with not just sort of the education of the issue, but a way to participate and solve and take action, I think is really great. It's really great. If I had a suggestion, I would probably add some costs to create more of like a kit to leave behind, so students can monitor their own schools or neighborhoods. That could include the things that we use when we walk around Portland, like, you know, bags to keep birds or to collect birds or identify birds, things like that. And that would allow the students to really transition from the classroom to, you know, the front steps of the building. But I think it's a great approach, and thank you.
I'm going to actually
Thank you very much.
Feedback to this. Guys, don't leave out middle school. The energy and the passion of a middle schooler is second to none in the educational spectrum. And one of the things that happens in middle school, if you teach something to a middle schooler, 99% of the time it gets home. Whereas in high school, that's not quite so true. So you'd be getting more bang for your buck with respect to coverage, and you're getting the individual at a more impressive, I can't think of the right word, but impressionistic moment, so that they're going to become passionate about it and hold on to it longer. And I think I wouldn't leave those guys out of your picture. Yeah, high school is great, but I like the idea that Addie had about there being a continuum, and the same kind of continuum could be created with the middle school approach. Thank you, everyone. At this point, I'd like to invite the jurors. I've sent the jurors, except Addie, and Addie, I apologize, except for Addie, I've sent the jurors an email, including all their email addresses, and I wonder if you guys could pull off your own mini Zoom so that you could talk with each other, and any more feedback to give, and announce who you think, whose project you think was the tightest or the best, or whatever, however you want to characterize it. So, and students, stay with me. I've got a lot of information for you coming up. In fact, if you don't have a pen or pencil or something to write on, you might want to. So,
I'm creating a breakout room.
Okay.
I'm creating a breakout room, and I'm manually assigning the folks to go in it. Addie, should I add Addie to this room? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
It'll take me just a minute here. Sorry, I have to start again. Sorry, it's taking so much time.
You know, Portland is really lucky to have, and I don't know if how many other towns have this, but they have the expeditionary learning in King Middle School, and the work that it's 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and it is extraordinary, actually. So they are given a year-long project, and all their subjects are wrapped into real-time problem solving. And yeah, it's pretty fabulous.
The middle school curriculum is also a little more fluid. It allows, different kinds of things to happen. Where high school, they start focusing on SATs and college boards and everything else like that. So it's a little more curriculum oriented.
So I've created 2 rooms, one for the jurors and one for everybody else. So just click join and we're good.
All right, gang,
I'm in the office.
I'm
one of the few that comes in.
Yeah.
I thought they all did a really great job. And
I'm so sorry I had to leave. Actually, I was really enjoying it.
I love that. That was great. Different different solutions and different approaches and creative solutions.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop.
Was a great, and just, you know, thank you so much to the jury. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob. So it is my honor to be able to speak first and speak to all of you. This was such a great opportunity. I don't very often get to engage this deeply with all of you, except for when your shows are up in the MECA Hall. So this was really awesome to hear you present, to see what you come up with, to see your creativity in action. Thank you so much for including me in this. So we were not able to choose one. And we have a really good reason for that, that one of the other group members is going to explain, but we did choose different categories. So for the most innovative, meaning the most innovative idea that we saw was Junko Jeans. Your idea to put this film on the glass is complicated and expensive and innovative. It's the most likely scientific solution in the future. We loved it. The most creative was painted pants with the bird helmets. We were very excited about that. And the creativity, we were still laughing about it when we were in our group. So excellent. The most likely to have a long lasting impact is bird death prevention intervention. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
BDPIP, I think there was a P in there too. Your educational programming is likely to have the longest impact and to reach the biggest group. And then the most practical, meaning the things that we could implement tomorrow and actually get rolling tomorrow, were puffins and night owls. Your ideas are really excellent. We could actually start with something like that immediately. So really all of you earned a different distinction. Excellent job. And I'll stop and someone else can jump in.
And, you know, we were talking about one award versus splitting this up. And I actually reminded Nick of how we met, which was actually the Portland Society for Architecture launched a design competition 2 years ago. And when the jury sat with all of the submissions, there were 3 that they just couldn't decide amongst and decided to split up the awards amongst the 3 very different submissions. But one of them was actually on creating a bird safe corridor. And so thinking about an architecture competition, but also really thinking about the interstitial spaces, the spaces in between and how that impacts bird and human habitat, we thought it would be really great to start a relationship with Maine Audubon and really ask about this. So when multiple groups win out, then there's even further dialogue, conversation, and you can learn more. And it was really amazing at the opening to see all the different teams that did win and to actually have this conversation amongst themselves about why they chose what they chose and how it does all integrate. So those conversations can continue happening. So thank you. Thank you, everyone. It was really great.
Yeah, I just want to say how delightful this all is. It's such a treat to be able to take these sort of sad and troubling problems that I deal with all day and turn them over to creative, cool people who can find different angles and find new solutions and just think of them in ways that I don't get to think about, or I don't think of them. So yeah, it didn't feel right to pick one winner because they were all different takes on the same problem and had their own merits. And so I had a great time. Thank you so much. And I have to say that this is real. This is a real thing that we are doing in Portland and around the state and around the country. And if any of you folks want to stay in the loop or volunteer or lend your real expertise to this real problem, let me know. Just shoot me an email and I can loop you into the emails that we send around. We have various opportunities. If you're a morning person, unlike me, you can join us walking around the city in the morning to actually find birds on the sidewalks and see which buildings are causing the problems. We have other roles as well. And so you know, the thinking that you guys have done and the work you guys have done really ties back to a real issue. And so I really appreciate it.
And I'll just put some pressure on Nick, maybe get him into a bit of trouble here, but it would be amazing to consider an artist in residence program at Maine Audubon too, and sort of thinking about literal application of what you could do with decal tapes or anything else. Our organization is really looking at Gilsland Farm to be a demo site where you would have large scale, you know, glass panels that are donated by glass suppliers. So you could see in situ the technology, but then there are also opportunities, whether it's working with the tape decals or something else. It's not a definite, but I do want that idea cast out. And I think the more you say it, the more it could possibly happen. So I'm an instigator and I'll put myself back on mute.
Nice. I'm really glad you instigated that. And Anne, did you want to announce the other?
Well, it's going to give you a personal thing. I live on Peaks Island and use the Casco Bay terminal several times a day, and am always in that room with a live bird that somehow got in and can't figure out how to get out. So I live the bird nightmare constantly. And I also wanted to tell you, Laura had to leave, but just so you all know, the college is working with a developer to get this telephone building in Forest Avenue that will be the new dormitory or residence hall. And it's a 10-year project. So if you want to put a bug in her ear or a bird on her window, now's the time to tell her you want bird safe glass or decals.
I love it. You just created a new phrase. I want to put a bird on your window. I love it.
Yeah.
That is totally genius.
Quick, add it to the decals. I want to put a bird on your window. So you all did such a great job. Thank you so much for having us. This was really great.
Thank you for doing it, for heaven's sakes. Thank you so much, all of you. Very important. All right. Anyone any students have anything to say to this point?
I guess congratulations to everyone.
Nice.
Thanks for
Great.
taking the time to listen to our presentations.
Great.
Probably just thanks Nick for sticking with the whole class for all of that.
I loved it. Thanks.
Nick's been amazing. What was the one? Tell them about some of the one we worked on last time.
Oh man, Gilsland Farm is our center in Falmouth, and it's when it was built in the 1970s, it was the pinnacle of green technology, and almost immediately none of it worked because it was sort of eye in the sky and high hopes. And so we had the kids come and help design new buildings and figure out ways to solve the solutions at the buildings, it was a lot of fun, but it didn't quite have the practical impact that this one does. I mean, that we do hope to improve the building at some point, but it's not something that's right in front of us, unlike this one. So your all ideas really got my my engines churning, whatever the phrase is. Engines
And Nick, slot us in for two years from now. We'll be back.
Sounds good.
Great.
An artist in residence at Maine Audubon Society. How
Yeah, I was just going to add. Yeah, Addie, please, if you think of something you think we could work on, that would be great too. So
Yeah, absolutely. No, we have our coals in the fire all the time. So yes, we will be in touch on that. But yeah, I think with Maine Audubon and the future of building in our state, you know, the state of Maine is growing in popularity, as many of you probably know and feel the crunch on housing and conservation and land and what that means. So I think we have an opportunity to really think about how we build in harmony and for everyone and what that means. And so how we form those partnerships is vital. A year ago, when Nick presented for us with Eric, it was a hard audience, but now people are flapping their wings.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
No, so I think the more actually, and again, the more minds that are on this, the more creative minds that are on this, I think is really important. So innovative, creative minds.
We certainly don't lack of creative minds in our school. There's no question about that.
Great.
So, all right, everybody. Thank you all. I'll see you next week in the classroom in 209, and I will be communicating with you between now and then with a recap of today, and again a statement of please tell me if you're working alone in the next one or working with a team. So that's where we're coming from here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye all.